cater to unusual affairs. What do you consider to be unusual?
Oh, I don't know. What do you recommend?
Have you ever had an Egyptian feast?
Hey gang, it's time to head into some fun Thanksgiving flicks here. And I thought, since Thanksgiving's about family get-togethers that deal with cooking and eating, what better type of film to highlight than ones where the item on the menu isn't quite kosher, shall we say. We're starting off with the film that started the entire gore style of horror film, Blood Feast, which is Herschell Gordon Lewis and David L. Freeman's groundbreaking film about a Egyptian caterer that hold on a second. Put the chef hats away. Here we are. And there we go. Now, where was I? What? It's a fez. Well, yeah, I know I started with a chef's hat, but look, there's not a lot of mummy movies in the public domain, so I don't get an opportunity to wear a fez too often. Let me just go with this, okay? Oh, he's got to make up something. Anyway, it's about an Egyptian caterer who wants to bring about the return of the goddess Ishtar. Yes, I know Ishtar is not an Egyptian deity, it's a Babylonian one. It's just how the movie's working, okay? Anyway. And he, to do this, he's going to prepare a feast in which body parts of people are going to be part of the cuisine. Now, the film was the brainchild of the exploitation director and producers Herschell Gordon Lewis and David L. Freeman. Now, at this point in their career, they had been doing nude films. You know, the nudie cuties, as they're called, in which a very minuscule plot is used as a basis to get women to go topless or show their bare rears. And, well, they felt they had run that gamut to its inevitable conclusion. They decided they needed to do something else, so they sat down and wrote a list of things that they could exploit. And gore was one of them, and they decided, hey, no one's really done that. We could be the first and make a killing, which they did, figuratively and literally. In the showbiz sense. So they made Blood Feast. This was the first of what came to be known as the Blood Trilogy, in which you had Blood Feast, 2000 Maniacs, Color Me Blood Red, at which point Lewis and Friedman had a bit of a falling out, and they separated. Lewis would continue to make gory horror films like The Gruesome Twosome and The Wizard of Gore, while Friedman went back to doing softcore nude films like with titles like "Thar She Blows" and the and the Defilers and such. Defilers? Was that one of his? No. Uh, the erotic adventures of Zorro and stuff like that, in which nothing hardcore was there. His philosophy was you sell the sizzle, not the actual steak. But then when Deep Throat came out and it became all the rage, porno chic as they called it, he dropped away from doing that because it wasn't his kind of scene where it's all just hardcore action. There's nothing for him to sell there. Once you've seen it, you've seen it. Oh, he did make an interesting film called She Freak, which was sort of a updating of the Todd Browning classic Freaks. But we're here to talk about Blood Feast, where it all started. And because of this film, subsequent films that Gordon would make came under heavy scrutiny because the censors and such were blindsided by this film. Nobody was expecting this. So after that, his films got closer scrutiny, and while Blood Feast actually played in mainstream theaters, his subsequent stuff was relegated to the grindhouses because the powers that be were just not going to accept this. And then by the time he went out and stopped making films in the mid-70s and went into mail order business, he wrote several books on that, how to make money in the mail order business and real estate. We had the likes of Friday the 13th, My Bloody Valentine, and Happy Birthday to Me. All these Prom Night, all these films. Well, no, not Prom Night. Prom Night wasn't that gory. But all these films that just ladled on the gore and had better gore effects, actually, than Lewis's films. Lewis's films were really cheap. You would not believe that a full film, though usually about 70 to 75 minutes long, could be made for the amount of money he was making on it. Anyways, let's get to the film itself, which we open with a woman in a bubble bath. But the lasciviousness of it doesn't last very long. I had to cut it there because he stabbed her in the eye and removed it with the knife. Then takes her leg, part of her leg, and absconds with it. We are next introduced to our hero, Detective Thornton, who's rather stumped.
Pete, this is the worst yet. I don't know what to make of it. 7 killings in 2 weeks. Young girls. And each killing more brutal than the other.
The man playing Pete Thornton is William Kerwin, a regular of Herschell Gordon Lewis. Outside of his films, his only other appearances were in TV. Although he will always look back fondly on this film, or he could always look back fondly on this film, but we'll get to that later. Next, we are introduced to famed Egyptian caterer Fuad Ramses, who just happens to be our killer, and he gets a visit from socialite Mrs. Fremont.
I heard about you from a friend of mine, Annette Dupree. I'm giving a dinner party in 2 weeks for my daughter, and Mrs. Dupree said that you cater to just the type of thing I'm looking for. I want something unusual, something totally different.
Something unusual. He suggests an Egyptian feast. one that has not been had for almost 10,000 years. Why, Fremont jumps at that. Her daughter just happens to be studying Egyptology. What a coincidence. And so she jumps at it, and he'll have it ready in 2 weeks, no problem. After she leaves, he heads into the back, where we find out he's got an unusual room behind his catering shop.
Oh, my Ishtar, my goddess, at last you have signaled me to begin. O divine and wondrous one of the veiled light, at last Shamos shall visit you in the feast of your love.
So, this feast will bring Ishtar back to life. Well, now we got motive. He's got to collect some more ingredients for his feast. And so we cut to the beach. And despite the warnings that the police have issued for women to stay indoors, which is an interesting one considering the last one was killed in her apartment, but let's not go into that. A extremely amorous boyfriend has decided his girlfriend needs to show him how much she cares, despite her being afraid about being out late at night with this. And well, it's not going to end the way he was hoping. The libido always gets you in trouble in a horror film. Tony is left alive, though with a blow to the head. His girlfriend is not so lucky, as this time Ramsey's needed part of her brain. Later, we see just how amazing an acting job the guy playing the boyfriend does.
She wanted to leave. She was scared. It's all my fault.
Hey, what's up? Oh. You're scared? Of what? The acting. Oh, come here. Don't be ridiculous. Anyway, we move on to our next victim. Yes, that is the infamous scene that this film was known for, in which Fuad Ramses pulls out a woman's tongue. Now, actually, they used a animal's tongue and put it in the actress's mouth with some cranberry sauce to simulate blood, and then pulled it out in loving close-up, I might add. But after this, we are finally introduced to Mrs. Fremont's daughter, Suzette. Suzette, played by Connie Mason.
Only, I was reading about all those murders, and it sort of takes all the joy out of everything. It's all so strange.
What? Yes, I know her lack of talent is extremely scary, but fine. Yes, Connie Mason, not exactly a trained actress. She was a Playboy bunny and Playmate of the Month, and was cast mostly for her name value in that area, not for any acting talent she may or may not have had. Interestingly enough, William Kerwin and Connie Mason met on this film and started dating and married up till his death. And he actually convinced her to also appear in 2000 Maniacs with him for Herschell Gordon Lewis. She had a sporadic acting career after that, preferring to be a wife and mother, as some people do. She goes to the lecture on Ishtar, one of the series of lectures she's been attending, and guess who's sitting next to her?
Virgin girls. Shamus was Ishtar's high priest and lover. He was worshipped as a lesser god by the men of the city.
Turns out they're actually dating. Plan to get married someday. And they did in real life. How about that? Anyway, after the lecture, they go for a drive, have some romantic talk, when he gets a call and has to drop Susie at her home because they've had a new victim. Only this one survived.
Is only mostly dead.
He came from behind a bush. Horrible old man. He said it was for Etar. Etar.
Etar. What could that possibly mean? Oh, long about this time, Thornton has learned that each of the women belonged to a mail-in book club. And they all were reading this book about ancient and bizarre rituals in the distant past. You know, Middle East, Africa, Asia, those kind of places, you know. But it doesn't make a connection. And then Ramses receives a letter requesting a book. And this just happens to be one of the friends of Suzette. And he goes and spies on them while they're at the pool. That was actually an effective shot.
I'm shocked.
Kudos, Mr. Lewis. When the intended victim leaves early to get some shopping done, well, she doesn't make it very far. Did she not notice him over there? He was... Anyway, he picks her up and takes her away, forgetting her purse. So the police will be looking for her pretty soon. He takes her back to the shop and the altar, where he has to perform a certain ritual with her.
Stop your screaming! Stop your screaming! Give yourself up to the goddess! Give yourself up!
Wow. Okay. Back at police headquarters, Thornton finally realizes, not Etar, Ishtar. And those books. There's the connection. He immediately looks up the address of where the books are coming from. Find Ramsey. So he and the cops rush over and make a grisly discovery.
The name of all that's holy is that.
That's Ishtar, Frank. The goddess of blood. Find the light, Frank.
Oh, poor girl. Oh, and of course the camera does a lovingly slow track close-up of her body so you could see all the gnarliness of it. It's then that Thornton realizes Ramses is the guy doing the catering at Suzette's party. And they need one victim to be sacrificed to Ishtar before the feast. They try to call, but a friend is on the phone, so they can't get through. So they're going to rush over there. Meanwhile, Ramses asked Suzette to help him with a little thing he has to do before they can start the feast. Only she complicates things.
Eyes must be tight and closed.
Oh, my Ishtar. This is silly.
Luckily, Suzette really doesn't take any of this seriously, and so she keeps sitting back up and laughing. But finally, it looks like he's finally going to get her to lay still so he can do the sacrifice.
O Ishtar, the feast has begun.
Oh, Mr. Ramses, I must say the guests are getting...
I'm sorry she did not get sacrificed. I know, being such a antagonist to her acting, you really wanted to see it, but was not meant to be. And go mom! Okay, well, Ramsey runs off. Pete arrives late and begins a chase that somehow on foot leads to a garbage dump in a residential area. Weird. But it turns out he picked the wrong place to hide. Oh, thank goodness they arrived late as usual. This guy's a horrible detective. Well, Fuad Ramsey crushed in a garbage truck, fitting end. Then after Pete explains to his boss his exact line of reasoning that led to Ramsey's, he gives a little pithy epitaph for this whole affair.
Who knows if the spell of this monstrous goddess has possessed anyone else? Lust, murder, food for an ancient goddess who received life through the perverted death of others.
Yeah, sure, okay. But wait, we have one last shot to show. Ishtar herself. Ishtar might even be supernatural.
I'm shocked.
Maybe he was on to something. Well, it'd be another almost 40 years before we'd find that out, because Lewis didn't make a sequel until 2002. Blood Feast 2, All You Can Eat. And by all accounts, he hadn't improved as a filmmaker. Except for a few scenes, the acting in this film is awful. It's not exactly fast-paced. It's got bad pacing, bad acting, stagnant shots. I mean, everything is just boom. Okay, act. But Lewis would have been the last person to have thought he had any artistic merit in anything he made. He made him make money, and he has his fans, but he himself never took these films seriously. And to be fair, this is a very, much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, this is a very darkly funny film. Not just from all the bad stuff that happens, but just the utter insanity of the plot, which is serviceable, but then you got all this bad acting or overacting or non-acting, and he knew it. But this is a cult favorite and did eventually lead to the types of gore effects that are pretty realistic. More realistic ones were, of course, pioneered by Tom Savini in Dawn of the Dead, Friday the 13th, The Burning. But I guess you could say Martin as well. He was working on that one. But anyway, yeah, very influential film. Very campy. And just insane. It actually inspired another film we're going to look at this month, in a few weeks. The Undertaker and His Pals, which has a somewhat similar plot, only without all the Egyptology mixed in. But, yeah, I can't even say it's a fun little film. It is an unbelievable little film with what they did and got away with. The actual effects of gore were actually made by Freeman and Lewis themselves, using for all the blood they developed their own from. Let me see what they develop it from. As always, I forget. Always forget. Had. One of the promotions from it was Freeman gave out barf bags. I wonder how many of them were used, since people probably weren't expecting what they saw. But it is one of the most important films in the horror genre, just for its influence, as opposed to the filmmaking in it. And for that, it should be appreciated. Please hit like, share, and subscribe, and stay after the credits for my favorite scene.
I'm not gonna let anyone hurt you. You're my girl, aren't you? Besides, it's still early. Look, we'll go when it gets dark. I promise.